The wind howled through the mountain pass like a wounded animal, rattling the wooden shutters of a small, lonely cabin clinging to the edge of the cliffs. Most people believed no one lived this high anymore. The winters were cruel, the paths were dangerous, and the silence was enough to drive a man mad. Yet inside that cabin, a single lamp burned, and beside it sat a man whose face had been shaped by years of solitude. When anyone ever asked him why he lived alone, he would simply shrug and say, "I never had a wife." His name was Elias. Few remembered it now. Decades ago, he had come to the mountains as a young man, strong-backed and hopeful, believing he would stay only one season to work as a guide. But seasons passed, and life, with all its quiet disappointments and small tragedies, slowly tied him to the mountains. The village below moved on. People married, had children, buried their elders. Elias remained, watching life from afar like a distant star. He had loved once. That was the part he never spoke about. The woman he loved had promised to return after visiting her family in the lowlands. She never did. News traveled slowly back then, but when it arrived, it cut deep. Sickness, a sudden passing, a grave he never saw. Elias learned early that loving deeply also meant losing deeply. After that, he chose the safety of solitude. The mountains asked nothing from him except endurance. Years turned his hair silver and his hands rough. He spoke more to the trees than to people. In winter, when snow buried the world, he survived on stored food and memories. In summer, he helped the occasional lost traveler, then sent them back down before attachment could grow. "I never had a wife," he would say, and that sentence became both truth and shield. One evening, as the first snow of the season began to fall, Elias heard something he had not heard in years: frantic knocking. At first, he thought the wind was playing tricks on his ears. No one climbed the pass after sunset. Especially not in early winter. But the knocking came again, louder, desperate. Elias opened the door, and the mountain cold rushed in, along with two figures wrapped in thin shawls, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. They were women, no older than their early 30s, though hardship had aged them. One clutched the other's arm as if letting go would cause her to fall apart. "Please," the taller one whispered, her voice trembling. "We don't know where else to go." Elias hesitated. His instincts screamed caution. The mountains had taught him that mercy without thought could be fatal. Yet when his eyes met theirs, he saw not threat, but raw despair. "We were turned away from the village," the shorter woman said, tears freezing on her lashes. "They said there was no room for us. They said we were a burden." Elias stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. The warmth of the cabin wrapped around them like a blessing. Elias gave them water, then soup, watching as their hands shook while they ate. Slowly, color returned to their faces. They introduced themselves as Mara and Ellen. Both were widows. Both had lost their husbands to the same landslide months earlier while the men were working in the mines below. The village had pitied them at first, but pity faded quickly when resources grew scarce. Two women with no men, no income, and no family became an inconvenience. "We tried to survive," Mara said softly, staring into the fire. "We worked, we begged, we sold what little we had. But winter is coming, and no one wants two mouths to feed." Elias listened in silence. He felt an old ache stir in his chest, something he had buried under years of routine. He told them they could stay the night. Just the night, he said. In the morning, they would decide what to do. That night, Elias lay awake on his narrow bed, listening to the storm outside and the quiet breathing of the women near the fire. He told himself this was temporary. Compassion did not have to mean permanence. Yet a small voice inside him whispered that nothing meaningful ever remained temporary. Morning came with heavy snow. The path down the mountain had vanished under white silence. Elias stepped outside, scanned the cliffs, and knew the truth before he said it aloud. "You can't leave today," he told them. "The mountain won't allow it." Days turned into weeks. The storm lingered longer than expected, sealing them in. They shared stories by the fire. Elias spoke little at first, but Mara had a way of listening that invited honesty, and Ellen's quiet humor softened the sharp edges of silence. Slowly, Elias found himself laughing, something he had not done in years. He learned that Mara had once dreamed of being a teacher, and Ellen of opening a small bakery. Both dreams had died with their husbands, or so they thought. Elias, in turn, shared pieces of his past, though he avoided the deepest wound. One night, as the fire crackled low, Mara asked him gently, "Why did you choose to live alone up here?" Elias stared into the flames. "I never had a wife," he said, as he always did. Ellen tilted her head. That's not an answer, she replied softly. Something broke then. Elias told them everything. The love he lost. The fear of loving again. The way solitude had felt safer than hope. When he finished, the cabin was silent except for the wind outside. Mara reached out and placed her hand over his. You survived, she said. But surviving is not the same as living. Elias pulled his hand away, shaken. He did not sleep that night. He realized with growing panic that he had begun to care, and caring meant vulnerability. The unexpected twist came when the storm finally cleared and the path reopened. Mara and Ellen packed their few belongings. We can't stay, Ellen said. We don't want to become a burden to you too. Elias wanted to protest, but pride and fear held his tongue. He watched them walk down the path, their figures growing smaller until the mountain swallowed them. The cabin felt colder than ever. Elias sat alone, realizing the truth too late. Loneliness was not his fate, but his choice. Weeks later, a knock came again. Elias opened the door to find villagers standing there, led by Mara and Ellen. The women looked different now, stronger, steadier. We started a small weaving trade in the village, Mara explained. People saw our work, they saw our determination. We earned our place, Ellen smiled, and we told them about the man on the mountain who saved our lives. The villagers offered Elias supplies, help, even an invitation to return. Elias felt overwhelmed. He looked at Mara and Ellen, then at the mountains that had been his refuge and prison. I don't know how to live down there anymore, he admitted. Mara stepped forward. Then don't come down alone, she said. The emotional truth settled between them, unspoken but clear. Elias realized that love did not have to replace what was lost, it could grow beside it. Kindness had brought them together, and kindness could build something new. That spring, Elias did not return to complete solitude. He split his time between the village and the cabin. Laughter replaced silence, purpose replaced endurance. When people asked him later about his life, he no longer said, I never had a wife.